to the Boropolis podcast. Yes, we are back. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not so sure, Nathan. But we are back. Third series, going strong. And it's good to be talking about Middlesbrough again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It feels like a long time since me and you have sat down and done one of these, Chris, although it has only been probably 2 months or so since that fateful final podcast of last season with the playoff semi-final defeat to Coventry City. But yeah, we are back after a few months off. A lot of things have happened on the transfer front, on the speculation front. Fixtures have come out, and now we are less than a week out from the new season beginning once again. And yeah, it's certainly going to be a jam-packed podcast full of lots of talking points. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But how are you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. I was at the races at the weekend, didn't win anything at all, apart from just managing to get my face a little bit sunburnt. But yeah, it's been all about the cricket this summer, to be honest. That and just refreshing Twitter, hoping that we'd signed a left back is what my summer's consisted of, really. I know you have fully converted and now just class yourself as a cricket fan, is that right?
Yeah, I do a little bit. Been banging at the Ashes this summer. Been to two of the days of the fourth test, which was a good experience. It's my first sort of visits to a cricket ground and cricket matches. So that was very nice and very good. I've been to Tenerife on holiday, and I've also been to the wonderful world of Bradford to go and watch the Borough in pre-season as well. So yeah, a range of different places around the world and the country, watching and doing a lot of nice things. But yeah, now back to the nitty gritty stuff of the championship season again. So yeah, it promises to be a really good season, hopefully. And yeah, let's hopefully be ticking off a few more away grounds off my list, and yeah, it'll be a season jam packed full of promotion and yeah, just parties at every little town and city in the championship. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you haven't jumped the gun there already. I mean, the P word sort of shouldn't really be used until at least April time. And I mean, we got both short after beating Sheffield United last season. But yeah, obviously, from what you've said, sounds like you've had a very busy, nice summer. Obviously, going to Bradford being the highlight of that. But yes, Nathan, we've as you say, got so much to talk about, and I think most people that follow the Twitter account or follow Instagram have been more consistent on that. That was one of the promises I made at the end of the last season's podcast, and I think we've done okay so far. So if you aren't following on Instagram, it's just the same as the Twitter handle. But yes, transfers. It's Middlesbrough transfers and Boropolis. I'd like to think they're sort of intrinsically linked now. When people think of transfers, they think of us. And yeah, do you want to start with the outgoings or the incomings?
We'll go with outgoings first. Obviously, all the loan players have now gone back to the parent clubs, and the hope at the end of last season from a lot of the fan base and probably a lot of people inside the club as well was that we could hopefully bring a few of those back in to the group, whether that be on loan deals again, or if sort of things fell into place nicely, then on permanent deals possibly. But as of yet, nothing has materialized in terms of those deals. There was one, which is a massive talking point, which we'll get onto a little bit later, which has rumbled on all summer and has now come to a conclusion. But yeah, none of those loan players as of yet are back at Middlesbrough. So there is 6 of the group last year that are no longer in the building at Rockcliffe.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, let's just address the elephant in the room, Nathan. Obviously, you spoke about the saga, which is dragged on and dragged on and dragged on, and we didn't sort of get the ending to the story that we all hoped for. Ryan Giles has signed for Premier League Luton Town on a permanent basis, put an end to the speculation, put an end to the hopes of many Middlesbrough fans. And I think, obviously, with Mark Bola going, who's gone to Turkey on a permanent basis as well, I think most throughout the summer, although there wasn't sort of too many concrete links, everyone just assumed that he was the number one target. And it was not a foregone conclusion, but we all thought the way the noises out of the club have sort of sounded from different articles and whatnot, there wasn't really any links to any other left backs. And I think everyone just thought, well, if that's the case, they must be quite confident with Giles. But obviously, he has gone elsewhere. From reports, I guess, after it was confirmed, it seemed that Middlesbrough just weren't willing to match the fee that Luton were willing to pay, at least up front anyway. In that deal, there's a buyback clause and a sell-on percentage. A few people have questioned whether that's a good deal or not for Luton, but at the end of the day, they do have Ryan Giles at their disposal now, and we don't. So I guess the question is, Nathan, is it the end of the world? Was that a must to bring Ryan Giles back, or can we survive now without him?
It's a strange one because as of yet we're yet to see any other real links to left backs. Of course, there was the mention of Bangura, which was pretty much on the same day that it was said that Luton had agreed a fee for Giles. And since then, we haven't really heard a whole lot. I think me and you have been joking that was the last link that we've heard, probably for over a week now in terms of transfer front, which is a little bit worrying. But at the same time, it's sort of good to keep your business in-house and stop it leaking out into the press. So you never know, something might crop up that someone's pretty much already agreed and things in the next few days. But yeah, in terms of left backs, I think everyone that is a fan of the football club was hoping that Ryan Giles came back, whether that was on loan or on a permanent deal, which he has, of course, gone to Luton for. Yeah, I think my hope was that he did come back because he was so influential in our way of playing last season in terms of, yes, okay, we played a back four and Giles was the left side of that back four, but he was given the license to bomb on, and then Tommy Smith or Anthony Dykesdale would come in and sort of cover, and we'd play like a back three. So yeah, it was my hope that he would come back. And at the minute, I don't want to say whether or not that'll be sort of a big letdown for Michael Carrick and his side going into the season, because the window's not quite closed yet. And I think the priority will be bringing in a left back, because we are very light in that area with only Hayden Coulson as an option there. So yeah, I don't want to make a judgment call yet. When the window closes at the end of August, start of September, then I think I'll be able to pass proper judgment.
Yeah, I think I echo the sort of sentiments of what you said. Obviously, it was so crucial last season. One of Michael Carrick's sort of tweaks to the system, which really benefited Giles and really benefited us in terms of just an attacking threat, was obviously that three, and then positionally having the left back pushed really into more of a winger sort of position, I guess, and allowing him to have the opportunity to deliver quality, which in fairness to Ryan Giles, he does on a pretty consistent basis. And obviously in those attacking situations, he managed to get himself 11 assists last season. And if you look at it plainly and simply of just maths in and out, we now have to replace 11 assists. Okay, yes, they could be spread about. But look, I think for me, there's been a lot of people trying to almost accept it. And obviously it's the right thing to do. It can't be changed now. But I think personally, I'll await to see sort of his replacement. But at the moment, I do feel like it's a major loss to the way we play. And I guess the sort of counter argument to that is that some people would often question Ryan Giles' defending, albeit I do think he actually improved defensively towards the back end of last season. But a lot of people have said, well, we can sort of move away from having an over-reliance on Giles and perhaps have a more well-rounded left back and be, I guess, structurally a little bit more solid, because at times we were sort of almost open to the counter and things last season. And I do somewhat agree, but I think hypothetically, had Ryan Giles have come back, yes, we probably would have seen a similar tactic where he would have bombed on and been sort of that higher up fullback. But given another season of Michael Carrick's coaching, I'd like to have assumed that he could have brushed up even further on his defensive ability and that aspect of his game. But obviously, look, we don't want to be talking completely hypothetical, and obviously that's been and gone now. But as you say, it's vital, really. And I think there's been a little bit of debate, at least from what I've seen on social media, as to whether left back or striker is the bigger priority. And for me, I think although we are crying out for a striker, I personally think left back may be a more important role to fill at the moment, because we can kind of sort of muddle our way through for maybe a few weeks of the season with Crooks up top, or some people have suggested Fours going up top, which is a complete different conversation altogether. But yeah, I think with Rodgers obviously incoming as well, I think we could muddle through. Whereas for me, I just think I'd like to get the back four sorted quicker rather than perhaps looking further up the pitch. But yeah, Nathan, and transitioning nicely, I spoke of one of the incomings there. It's been quite strange in the fact that actually the majority of incomings all happened in a complete flurry, a week of madness, in which I felt that at times my hands were just going to sort of start smoking and set on fire from sending tweets out. Obviously, we were both at it, constantly firing out tweets about what was going on. Yeah, let's cover some of the incomings, because, I mean, it was quite an enjoyable week, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a crazy week. And actually, I was on holiday at the time, so I was trying not to be on my phone 24/7, but it was proving very difficult at the same time, because I wanted to keep on top of what was going on. And yeah, we had 6 signings in a week, which was quite fantastic, really. First of all, Alex Gilbert came in from Brentford B for a little fee. So then we move on to Rav van den Berg, a guy centre-half / fullback in our sort of fullback struggles. He's been playing there throughout pre-season a little bit. Rav van den Berg coming in from Pex Waller. Sammy Silvera coming in from Central Coast Mariners. Tom Glover coming in from Melbourne City. Morgan Rogers from Manchester City. And Seni Dieng from QPR, all in a week. So, yeah, in that list, we have 2 goalkeepers, 2 wingers / attackers. Alex Gilbert as a sort of number 10 player, and Rav van den Berg as a defender. So a lot of bases covered there. And I think the one that sort of caught my eye the most was Rav van den Berg. And that was because a lot of reports, when it sort of came out that Middlesbrough had agreed a fee, were that Rav van den Berg had sort of pricked up the interest of many top clubs across Europe, Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan, clubs like that, that in the real world, Middlesbrough shouldn't really be able to compete with if they really wanted Rav. But he's here, and one of the reasons that he decided to come here on a 4-year contract was the game time that was promised. And for an 18-year-old defender in the Championship, a league that is sort of renowned for being so physical. It is a big call from Michael Carrick and Jonathan Woodgate, but they must have seen a lot of potential in the lads, and he's here now. And I mean, I've only seen a very short sort of snippet of him, which was at Bradford last week, but by God, is he a big lad and very much comfortable on the ball. And yeah, he looks like a real good prospect for us. But yeah, he's my sort of pick of the bunch out of the 6 signings. Who have you got your eye on, Chris, out of that list? Of course, there are a few of the inexperienced players there in the Championship, but then of course you have someone like Seny Dieng, who was one of the top keepers in the Championship probably 2 seasons ago now. So who's your number 1 pick out of that list?
I think you've actually missed out perhaps the most exciting signing, and obviously that was Jamie Jones on a free from Wigan, who was being brought in as a 3rd choice goalkeeper. No, of course I am joking. Although there's nothing better than a little bit of experience to add to the ranks, and obviously he replaces the outgoing Liam Roberts, who's joined Barnsley on loan. But no, in terms of the standouts, obviously, I think because of the competition that we reportedly beat to the signing of him, Van der Berg really stands out, doesn't he? And then I guess I've probably got 2, and one of which, Seny Dieng, as you mentioned, a lot of people, and QPR fans especially, you tend to find if a player's leaving a club, the quick. In fact, it's almost a rarity if a player leaves a club and you see their fans in the comments sort of saying all the best, or you were fantastic for us. We hope you go on to achieve this, that, and the other. QPR fans are and have been very critical of Seny Dieng, especially the last season. But as you say, if you rewind probably 2 years ago, I think most considered him one of the best in the Championship. Obviously, I think he did have a little bit of a challenging season, but so did QPR as a whole. The defence was shambolic at times. And I mean, let's be honest, for quite a large part of the back end of last season, a few thought they were even going to drop into League One. So look, I don't think we want to judge him on that, but perhaps what we do want to judge him on is how calm and relaxed he looks on the ball. Obviously, one of the loanies to depart, Zach Steffen. Whether you loved him or hated him, I think most loved him towards the end, and finally sort of accepted what he was and what a vital cog in the way we play. But Seny Dieng adds or replaces sort of one of Steffen's number 1 qualities, and that is being composed on the ball, inviting pressure, and then picking the right pass to start off the attacks. And yeah, I think that's one where for a few days where it seemed like it may have been off, apart from Carl Darlow, I think he was probably my number 1 choice, and I was a little bit disappointed. And then thankfully it sort of managed to, within around 24 hours, there was a full 360 and he was having his medical. So yeah, that one's pleased me. And then Morgan Rogers, just because it's a little bit of a, you can see that Kieran Scott has had his say on this one. Obviously, Aaron Danks has been mentioned because he had Rogers at West Brom, so I'm sure he'll have had his input on that signing as well. But it feels like a signing that Norwich might have made 3 years ago when they had all their success. A player that burst onto the scene, got a move from West Brom whilst in the youth team to Man City, had a couple of okay loan spells, obviously Lincoln, of course, Nathan, you can tell us all about that. And obviously we've had the Lincoln perspective up on Twitter. But then his progress was sort of slowed down, almost stopped to a point, really. Had a couple of unsuccessful loan spells. Bournemouth, I don't think really worked out for him. And then last season, obviously, he had a loan spell at Blackpool, and which was, I think, okay from most judgment, but a lot of Blackpool fans pretty much said he wasn't able to show what type of player he was, purely because we, majority of the time, were trying to defend leads or trying to nick games. And, obviously in the end, they were relegated. But yeah, it's an exciting one because it's a little bit of the unknown, and I guess you could throw all of our signings, I suppose, apart from Dieng, into that category. They're all a little bit of an unknown, and I think that makes it so exciting. We've clearly seen a shift in the type of players that we're targeting, and we've bulked out the squad with exciting potential. And it just goes to show that new model and the first real chance that Kieran Scott's had to really get his hands on our transfer recruitment and really show what he's about. And obviously the whole reworked scouting network, obviously we've had a few different heads of departments join the club and different scouts and things like that. So they're all exciting signings, but I guess we've got to reserve judgment a little bit because the majority, as I say, are all fairly untested.
Yeah, they are. And whilst they're all very sort of exciting signings because of the potential that comes with all of those signings, apart from Seny Dieng, really, who's the experienced goalkeeper that we needed, that is probably really in his prime years of his career, now at 28. So apart from him, I can't see many that are going to come into the current crop of players that sort of ended that playoff semi-final second leg and immediately walk into the team. And I think now that the squad's been bulked out a little bit with these guys coming in, I think that the reason that we've seen sort of a slowing of the incomings is because now we're aiming for players of the ilk of Cameron Archer, Aaron Ramsey, Ryan Giles, players that played such a massive impact on the Middlesbrough team last season. We need to replace those bodies with either the same bodies that were there last season or players that are going to offer us similar levels in terms of output and what they offered to this side last season, offer on this season. So I think that's the reason that we've seen a slowing on the incomings, but yet we hold out hope that in the next month, the last month of the summer window, that Kieran Scott can work his magic and pull us a 25 goal season striker and Ryan Giles regen at left back. So yeah, it's been an exciting window so far. That flurry of signings was very nice and kept me and you on our toes for a good week or so. And since then, it has all gone quiet, even on the rumour front. So Boropolis is sort of getting messages now from fans saying, please do something. And unfortunately, it isn't up to us. So, yeah, I wish it was up to us, but yeah, there we go. We'll just have to be patient for now. But yeah, and of course, with these signings coming in, they are one thing that the club has been doing, but also the handing out of new contracts to players, which is always nice when you have a few players that are seemingly running down into the final year of the contract or running out of contract soon enough. And there's a bit of panic in the fan base. We don't want to lose them. And if we lose them for free, then it'll be gutting and things like that. So yeah, new deals for a few different players. I think before the end of the season, we saw one for Tommy Smith, which was good, handing him another year as our starting right back towards the second half of last season. Then we saw Johnny Howson, of course, that missed a 1 year contract. He hasn't been handed a multi-year deal for a very long time, and he's just been signing 1 years, and he just keeps getting better and better. Then we've seen Hayden Hackney. I mean, strange one in the way that he was handed a deal in October, November time last year, and he's been handed another one now till 2027. I mean, I'm not going to complain because he's sort of the linchpin in this Middlesbrough side. He is the future of this Middlesbrough side and the present, in fairness. And yeah, I love Hayden Hackney. He's such a good player on the ball and can't wait to watch his first full season. And then we have Josh Coburn, who of course is one for the future. Teesside Haaland struggled a bit with injury in pre-season, as has Johnny Howson. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not Michael Carrick keeps him around for the season, or whether he goes out on loan again, which is something that has been talked about. One of the new contracts that a few fans possibly weren't expecting, but has been given, and I think a lot of fans are pleased about, is the big tree. I mean, I can't really believe that we are now going into the third year of Matt Crooks, because it only feels like it's been a short spell at Middlesbrough so far, and it feels like he's been sort of influential in so many big moments for the club, with, of course, the goal at Man United, the assist for Josh Coburn against Tottenham, the last-minute goals against Reading, the last-minute goal at Norwich, the last-minute goal against Luton. He's super Matt Crooks. Love the man to bits, and buzzing that he signed a new deal.
I'm very happy with this one, I'm not going to lie. I know you said a few people were a little bit surprised, but I think in terms of even the situation we find ourselves in now, he's going to be an integral part of at least the early part of the season, and I'm sure he will be throughout the season, because we saw what an impact he had even coming on as a substitute last year. And he can sort of play that number 9, which I think he's still confused at himself. At least he said so when he spoke to BBC Tees the other week. He's still not quite used to playing up there. But yeah, that was the one I was happy with. And obviously, it's great to tie down some of the younger players. Obviously, Hayden Hackney's a big one, because even after half a season and nominations for awards, I was fully expecting interest from the Premier League. And I think that goes to show that, you know, he's level-headed enough to know that even if it is to be one more season, it's best for his career to play a full season, as you say, be a vital part of the Middlesbrough team. And then, look, I don't even want to look that far into the future, but at least we have protected ourselves if some of the big boys do come in for him next season, and that we can command a similar fee to, you know, some of the numbers that are being sort of mentioned alongside Alex Scott, upwards of 20 million. And I think, to be honest, it would take a bit of that size, assuming that he has as good of a full season as he did for the second half of last season. But yeah, delighted with Crooksy. And I just hope he's got a few more of them moments. He seems to have a few every season, but I can't wait for him to deliver on those this season.
I think he will as well. He is the man that when Middlesbrough needed him, he's popped up. You look at Norwich, you look at the Luton game at home, popping up with those last-minute goals. The Reading one sticks out massively. Playing in midfield at the time for that Chris Wilder side, and popping up with 2 massive goals. But yeah, I think that he is going to play a really important role once again. And in fairness to him, in his interview with the club, he said he'd spoken to Michael Carrick, and Carrick had said, look, I can't promise you game time. And Crooks said, no problem, I back myself to get the minutes well in this side by performing well in training and in games when given the opportunity, which just goes to show what a man he is, really. And yeah, fair play to him. And then a really, really important new contract for Dale Fry, the big lighthouse. Over the years has been phenomenal for Middlesbrough, and over the years, in the same breath, has struggled with injury. If we can go through a full season with Dale Fry at the heart of our defence, I think that'll just only make us stronger, really. Looking at the teams in and around the playoffs last season, we probably had the worst defensive record in the top 6. And that was just sometimes the way that we played. We played quite openly, and as was seen with the goal against Coventry on the final day of the season, and also the one in the playoffs, in fairness, sometimes we overplay a little bit and get caught out, and it leaves us in sort of 2v1s or 3v2s. And that's just how it is. And Dale Fry not being fit for the playoffs was a bit of a bitter one to take, I think. Of course, all the injuries were, but Dale Fry played a really important role throughout the season, and especially in that sort of spell where we just seemed to just win every game from like the end of January through February through March. He was really, really important in that run, and to tie him down for another few years is really important. And he's probably going to be the club captain when Johnny Howson does decide to retire. Although I hope that day doesn't ever really come. But yeah, Dale Fry, he's now, I think as a Middlesbrough fan, we've seen, especially in sort of mine and your lifetime, Chris, we've looked and seen one promotion really in our lifetime. And he was only a young kid then. And in our
Yeah,
time watching Middlesbrough, he's probably been like a mainstay throughout every year that we've really been watching the club. And I think he's just probably got better and better as time's gone on. Obviously, he pocketed Ronaldo at Old Trafford. He pocketed Harry Kane at the Riverside. And yeah, hopefully he's back fit and firing for the start of the season to pocket Duncan Watmore on Saturday.
yeah, it's an interesting one, Dale Fry, because I think in the club interview they mentioned about does he consider himself a senior player now, and if age is anything to go by, and I guess how long he's been in and around the first team and involved, you look at him now and you do think he is probably one of the more senior heads, one of the sort of go-to leaders in the dressing room. I'm not sure about his thoughts on gravity, but I guess that's a whole different story. Fortunately, he doesn't need to have anything to do with his scientific knowledge whilst he's heading balls away in the championship. But yeah, it's, as you say, sort of been a little bit of a constant, I suppose. For a certain age group of Middlesbrough fans, he emerged really, of course, a couple of years after Ben Gibson, but as that sort of upwards trajectory of Ben Gibson was happening, he was sort of becoming his understudy. And once Ben Gibson had gone, obviously, he really took his space in the role of the heart of the defence as the local lad. And yeah, I think any Middlesbrough fan would say the same, but I'm a huge fan of Dale Fry. I think even a few years ago, I think it was under Gary Monk perhaps, and I mean, this doesn't really mean an awful lot because most players did, but he had a little bit of a wobble where he just didn't really look too convincing on the ball, and perhaps that was just inexperience at the time, because I think we forget how young he was when he made his debut at Preston. And I mean, that was in the promotion season, when you think how long ago that was now. But yeah, year upon year, he's got stronger and better, and obviously, unfortunately, has been not so lucky with injuries. There always seems to be some sort of lengthy injury throughout the season, and obviously, it come at a really bad time last year. But as you say, any championship side, and even some lower Premier League sides, would be lucky to have Dale Fry in the heart of the defence. And big news with that contract. But I guess, Nathan, whilst we're talking about contracts, we've spoken about one elephant in the room. There's another quite major one. And alongside the Ryan Giles saga, we've had a whole different saga about that man this summer, Nathan. The train that took everyone's breath away last season has got its own saga, I guess, now this summer. And not that it probably should be a saga, it's just unfortunate that actually Chuba Akpom, of course, who I'm talking about, suffered an injury, hasn't trained. And personally, I know there's all different conspiracies about, but I don't really believe them. In fact, I kind of know that it's just not the case. But Chuba Akpom, because he hasn't been involved in pre-season, there's all kinds of rumours about he is signing a contract, he's not signing a contract, he's awaited here, there, and everywhere for 15 million quid most weekends, despite there being no credible links whatsoever. But yeah, I don't want to say it's become a problem yet. I think it's just sort of unfolded in a way that's quite unfortunate that he hasn't trained, and that's led people speculating. But it's certainly not an ideal situation. Firstly, because he's not fit, and we're going to go into the season by the looks of things without our star player last season. But also, we are yet to tie him down to another contract. And as that progresses and teams become more desperate towards the end of the transfer window, and we sort of head towards January, where it would be 6 months remaining on his contract, it's not ideal preparation at all, is it, going into a big season for the football club?
No, it's not. Of course, looking at what he's done last season, you look at this time last season, and it was, where's Churakpom going to go? Oh my God, he's going to be starting on the first day of the season because we don't have anyone else. We were looking at Dwight Gale, we were looking at David McGoldrick, and yeah, we didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't foresee what was literally the season of a lifetime for Churakpom, and now we find ourselves in a situation where he trained the first few days and then he didn't go on the Portugal trip, and that was seen as, oh my God, he's off. And
Yeah.
It was all, he's injured. He's picked up an injury. He had it from the playoffs last season, and it's sort of just cropped up again. And then it was, oh, well, he hasn't been training at Rockcliffe. He's been training with his personal trainer. Does that mean that the relationship with the club shattered? And it's just a saga that's rumbling on in the background. But you got to look at it as it is. He's coming into the last year of his contract. He's on the same terms currently as he was at the time he was given his 3-year contract with an optional 1 year. And he's just been the Championship Player of the Season. He's going to want more money, which
he's in the strong negotiating position, isn't he? Him and his agent, I should say.
Yeah, he's in the strongest position because we know how influential he is to this team and the way that we play. He knows that. He knows that last season he scored 28 league goals, 29 all competitions, and he did it from number 10. And he knows that there's teams in the Premier League, e.g. Sheffield United, who've just sold and now need a centre forward and will be offering Premier League wages. I think probably from what we've heard, he does actually want to stay.
Yeah.
He just wants a new contract with higher wages, but the club don't want to offer him what his demands are, and his agent's demands are. And with that, you sort of face the music a little bit with, if Sheffield United do offer the asking price, which is said to be £15 million or there or thereabouts, and they offer, I don't know, say they offer 12, are you going to accept it? Or are you going to accept it and try and replace him in the last month of the window? Or are you going to keep him for a year? He's possibly unsettled because he wants a new contract and you haven't given him it. And then you're going to lose him in a year's time. Or even worse, he signs a pre-contract agreement with some side in 6 months' time in January, and he just down tools for the rest of the season because he doesn't want to get injured.
Yeah, listen, it's a tricky situation for both sides, and obviously you talk of Sheffield United. I think that's more so. There's been a few sort of mutterings on swearing and things like that, but that's more so. In fairness, if you put sort of 2 and 2 together, they've just sold and die. Chuba Akpom probably isn't a bad replacement for, in terms of positionally, a forward that's willing to sort of drop deep and get more involved. And yeah, I think in terms of the situation, it's just one that needs to be resolved. And look, no one wants him to go. It weakens us even more so if he does go. But if you look at it in a complete, just no emotion business standpoint, we've got an asset that is potentially going to be at the peak of his valuation, probably forever, I guess. Coming off the best season of his career, the Championship Player of the Year, his price is never going to be higher, really. And the club, it may just come down to the club saying, well, if you're not willing to commit yourself before we get to January, let's say, then we're open to offers. Because like you say, I think it once it gets to 6 months, a player's free to negotiate with clubs outside of the UK. But I mean, let's be honest, the agents and players will be talking to clubs in the UK regardless. And I think that's not just Chuba Akpom. Once it gets to 6 months, it's sort of almost free reins, I guess, as long as no one finds out about it. But yeah, it's really not a great position, truth be told. And look, I think he deserves probably what he's going to be asking for, unless his demands. And is it? I keep on saying his, but I'm sure his agent's a driving factor in it as well. But yeah, a compromise is going to have to be met from both sides, and a solution, because I think if it does get to January, then that really, really becomes a difficult decision, because I think Middlesbrough would then probably have to drop their asking price a little bit from now, and you would then have to replace him in January if you were going to sell him. And January is a notoriously difficult window in any case. And then you also run the risk of him not signing for anyone in January and losing probably one of the most sellable assets we've had in God knows how long for nothing. And in terms of the way that the club want to recruit and the seeming direction that we are going in, it would be a horrendous situation, to be honest. So listen, I'm trying to look at it from that point of view, but I'm desperate for him to stay. I'm desperate for Middlesbrough to just tweet a train emoji with a little pen next to it or something along them lines and get us all excited and see his big grin alongside whoever's standing, hopefully Michael Carrick. But yeah, it's not a good situation. I think that's the be all and end all. There needs to be a solution, and we wait to see what happens. But yeah, in terms of any sort of rumours about him picking up a mysterious injury that's not real, I don't think that's in Chuba Akpom's attitude or mentality at all. I mean, you only have to look back 12 months. It was a striker, it was a person that had been cast aside completely, and yet he was willing to train with the 21s and keep himself fit and just bide his time and wait for the right opportunity. Unfortunately, it worked out the way it did. But do you really think that Chuba Akpom's just going to down tools now and say, well, until the contract's sorted? No, it's complete nonsense, to be honest. He's got an injury. Hopefully he's fit again soon, because he's a vital player at this Middlesbrough side. But yes, Nathan, it alongside Ryan Giles, and thankfully that's one out of the way, I would really like to see a Chuba Akpom resolution sooner rather than later, because it's just not good preparation for a very important season for the club.
Yeah, it's not. And of course, losing Giles is one thing as a loan player, but losing a player that, well, okay, yeah, he wasn't really wanted, I suppose, at the start of last season, but a player that's made himself wanted and valued, it'd be a massive dent to Middlesbrough season's preparations, because there's no doubt that Michael Carrick will have planned this side with Chuba Akpom in the main as his main man. And we all know the relationship that those two have. We've all seen the interviews with Chuba last season, sort of praising Michael Carrick, saying he's the best manager that he's ever had, and words of that like. So yeah, let's hope that it's all sorted soon. Chuba signs a new contract and scores 40 goals this season, gets us promoted. So yeah, that is the hope. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will, Nathan. I guess that sort of wraps up what most people deem the exciting part of the off season in terms of the speculation, the transfers in and out. Obviously, there has been a pre-season. Listen, personally, I know different people view it differently. I'm not a huge sort of one where I take a lot from pre-season in terms of results. It's all about fitness, practice. I can't even get my words out there. Practicing styles of play and patterns of play, trying different things out. For example, Riley McGarry at left back. Who would have thought that? But yeah, we've had a few, Nathan, a few strange ones. Probably most notably playing Real Betis in Chesterfield, one that I really still can't wrap my head around, but that happened anyway. Nathan, obviously, as you say, you attended the Bradford game, but we've had a few results, both positively and negatively. But I guess we can quickly go through the scores. But I think probably the main one, if we are even to discuss it at length, which I don't feel is required, there may be a few talking points, but obviously, back at the Riverside on Saturday with a 2-2 draw. But before that, and I'm quickly going to reel off the results, we started off pre-season with a 1-0 win in a behind closed doors friendly, but we were sort of, I think everyone was looking at the same account on Twitter for those that had travelled to Portugal and managed to give updates. So a 1-0 win in Portugal behind closed doors. Then Hartlepool up next, 2-1. York, which was 0-0. Then Rotherham, a win for Borough. Betis, obviously a 1-0 defeat. Bradford, probably the most exciting game of pre-season, which you were fortunate enough to be there, 3-3. And then, of course, the 2-2 draw at the Riverside. Nathan, are you a man that gets overly concerned by pre-season results?
No, not at all, really. I just don't care for them at all, really. And the only reason that I went to Bradford was because it's a new stadium at Tick-Off that I hadn't been to. I wouldn't have gone had I been before, because I'm just not bothered about pre-season. And really,
it sounds bad, doesn't it, that we're sort of just neglecting it? But in all honesty, I'm sure that pre-season in Michael Carrick's mind is already as far back as it could possibly be. His full attention will be on Millwall, as it, dear me, I nearly choked on my own tongue there, as it is myself and yours and most other people. Look, we're not going to get hung up on pre-season results, but I guess there was a few takeaways from pre-season. I think perhaps the most interesting one was really that typically the best, or in the eyes of the manager, the best starting 11 starts on the final game of pre-season. And I guess that's what we saw, apart from injuries on Saturday. It raises the same questions as we sort of spoke about at the top end of the podcast, really, that we can still see that left back and striker are the main positions that need filled. But also, obviously, we're going through a little bit of, I don't want to say a crisis, but definitely an injury problem at right back. Obviously, Paddy McNair filled in there, and Johnny Howson's still not fit. So Dan Barlaser has been the starting midfield partner for Hayden Hackney for the majority of pre-season. But apart from those talking points, perhaps, I guess, Rodgers' involvement as the 9 in the system. Are you sort of on board with Michael Carrick in that team that started on Saturday is the one that you'd go with against Millwall?
Yeah, probably. And the reason being is because we're absolutely battered with injuries. Because in no way, shape or form is that our strongest team on paper. And had we had a fully fit squad, our team would look very different to what started against Auxerre at the Riverside on Saturday. But injuries have got us strapped for what we can do. And yeah, I think that is probably what we will be going with on Saturday. So that'd be Dieng in goal, McNair right back, centre halves, Dale Fry, Darrell Lenihan, left back Hayden Coulson, although he did have a knock apparently in that game on Saturday. So we'll have to wait and see with that, or else we just definitely don't have a left back and Riley McGree will be playing there on the first day. In midfield, Hayden Hackney and Dan Barlaser. Number 10, Matt Crooks. Off the right, Marcus Force. Off the left, it was Riley McGree. And then as our number 9, Morgan Rodgers. So, look, we'll just have to wait and see on the injury front. At the minute, we've got so many players out injured. Both our right backs. Johnny Howson out injured. Chubrak Pom out injured. It is not looking good for the start of the season, really, and especially with the run that we've got early on, because looking at the fixtures when they did come out in the middle of June, I thought, oh well, Millwall at home, like we're at home first game, haven't. I don't think I've been to a home game at the start of the season for a good few years because I'm always on holiday.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh well, fantastic! I'll get to go to the Millwall game. That'll be really nice. That actually in the August sun, although it hasn't really been that sunny.
You know what, I was just going to say, it's literally, I'm looking out the window now and it is been throwing it down throughout the recording of this podcast. So yeah, hopefully by Saturday we've got clear skies.
Yeah. And then, I thought, fantastic. Be a good game that against a side that, okay, just narrowly missed out on the playoffs last season. We're hoping to be ready and sorted, pretty much being our strongest side by then. No, have a load of injuries on the eve of the season, because last season, towards the end, wasn't bad enough with all your injuries. Have a few at start of the season as well, including your star player just knocked out with an injury. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game. Millwall are a good side, as I mentioned, and have made a few good signings. And then of course we've got quite a strange run of fixtures, really. Trying to rate a few sides before the season started, which is a little bit difficult, but looking at teams' business, you can sort of get a gauge of what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be playing. And second game of the season, it's a League Cup game against Neil Warnock, which will probably get beaten because it's Neil Warnock. Doesn't really matter though, the League Cup. I think genuinely with the injuries, I think Michael Carrick will probably play the reserves.
Yeah.
And
Or
then
he may
for himself, Jonathan Woodgate at centre back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see for that one. But yeah, the early run of fixtures, Millwall first, League Cup, and then for the millionth time in the last few months, the banged Coventry in second game of the season, because just why not?
I was convinced that it was going to be first game and that they were really just going to take the piss and just rub salt in the wounds. But no, they've been really generous and put it second game of the season, or second league game of the season anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was always going to happen, wasn't it? Early doors.
On Sky as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Sky, 12:30 Saturday, have that second game of the season. So that'll have been 4 out of the last 5 games competitively that we've played Coventry, which is just horrendous, really. And do you know what? They've done quite a good bit of business as well, which is quite scary because I thought they were proper mudded at the end of the season when they got beat in the final. But no, they look like they're going to put a good season together again, which fair play to them, like really fair play to them. They've lost a star striker and replaced him with someone of a similar ilk in terms of he's a real handful, is Ellis Sims, and he scores goals at this level from what we've seen of him. So yeah, we've got Warnock second game of the season and then fourth game of the season, just to have another 2 defeats early on because it's Neil Warnock. Then West Brom away, that'll be a difficult test. And then the one that I'm looking forward to on the basis of pre-season is QPR at home, which is 5th game of the season. But they look up shit creek.
Well,
truly.
They may surprise a few, but I mean, in all seriousness, before we just start going through all the fixtures and wishing our lives away before even the end of the transfer window, it does sort of, well, it shows, doesn't it, that, look, I know the transfer window runs for another couple of weeks left, and I'm not quite panicking just yet. But we saw last season what a bad start can do for your season. It took us such a long time to recover, really. And I'm fully confident of the manager. I think it's nice going into a season where, although last season I was confident, I was more concerned about who was going to be the first club in the Premier League to lose their manager and where Chris Wilder was going to be somehow spotted in their stadium early doors. But no, I don't think Carrick's like that at all. I'm really confident with Carrick. But yeah, as I say, on a more serious note, Millwall is as tough of a test in terms of what the Championship's going to throw up this season. They've brought in Kevin Nisbet. They're still going to have that sort of, I think I referred to them as an ugly core last year, but it was more of a compliment than anything because they have got those sort of nasty players that'll win every second ball, make things ugly, win the turnovers, and really sort of grind you out for as much as you possibly can. So yeah, it's going to be a tough test. And listen, hopefully we can out football them, but it's going to be no pushover, is it really, Millwall? It never has been, and it never will be whilst they're on the path that they are at the moment. But Nathan, sort of looking just on the season ahead as a whole, I don't think we can really give a true sort of prediction as to where we'll come yet, or even put our neck on the line and say we'll be there or thereabouts. Because, as you say, even if we'd have had a fully fit squad, we are still 2 first-team starters away from the team that anyone would consider our first strongest 11. We're a striker and a left-back away, and I don't think we can give a full-on judgment. But where would you currently stand in terms of goals, assuming hypothetically that we brought in someone at a similar level of Cameron Archer, wink, wink. No, I'm joking. That's probably not going to happen. But yeah, if we replaced them with a sort of similar level of quality, do you look at this season and think we're weaker than the end of last year, or are you positive? What's sort of your overriding emotion going into this season?
Well, I think there's no doubt that certainly at the minute we're weaker than where we were at the end of last season, and that was because we had low knees from the Premier League. As of yet, we haven't got any in, but players that suited the system at the time, they'd been bedded in and they knew their roles in how Michael Carrick wanted to play.
We had I was going to say centre forward, Chuba in the form of his life, and a young centre forward that had done it in the Championship in the season prior and had come in, got double figures for goals himself. And yeah, we were no doubt a really, really strong side last year. And currently we're, as you say, a left back and a centre forward shy of where we were last season. But not only that, our star man is unfit. We don't have a fit right back. We don't have our club captain in midfield. So look, we're missing nearly half a team from where we were in May. But if we are to replace the players that were here last season, we do get a striker in that scores double figures. Chuba stays. We get the right backs fit again. Johnny Howson gets fit again. And we sign a left back. And I don't necessarily think that they even need to be as influential in terms of attacking output as Ryan Giles. I don't think that they need to be that. I think that the aim at the start of the summer, before any business had been done, I would have said, hopefully, we'd be pushing automatic promotion, because that's just the way that I am. I think that wherever you finish the season prior, you always should be looking to improve. But this year, I think it's a little bit different in the Championship with the strength of some of the teams that have come down, some of the teams that have come up even, and some of the teams that were left in the Championship at the end of last season that have definitely strengthened. You look at teams like Stoke. I think Coventry have definitely strengthened on where they were last season. Millwall have tried their best to do different bits and pieces. I think that the aim once again will be getting the playoffs, wherever that may be, whether you finish third or whether you finish sixth, get in the playoffs, and you're then once again a part of that lottery. And we have experience in that playoffs now with this group of players. They'll know what happened last season. They'll know the mistakes that were possibly made. And yeah, hopefully they'd back themselves to get their job done second time around. So yeah, I think that it will be the playoffs as an aim. That's definitely my hope. And really, the way that we'd seen a few of the players talking, especially Isaiah Jones in the interview that he gave at the end of last season, the aims for the club is promotion, whether that be through the playoffs or mainly the way that Isaiah was speaking was getting there automatically, which, I mean, it'd be massive to do that way and avoid the heartache of the playoffs once again. But it'll be a very difficult task, especially given the teams that have come down have all had a summer to rebuild, and they've all got different managers that have somewhat done it at this level before. Okay, Leicester have got an unproven manager. So did we when we appointed Michael Carrick, and look at what's happened here. But yeah, Daniel Farke at Leeds, done it before, won the league twice in 2 seasons. And then Russell Martin, one of the up and coming managers in the Championship, gone to Southampton. And the thing with those sides is they've retained a lot of Premier League quality, and that probably will tell at some stages of the season. Even when games aren't going against them, they have a bit of Premier League magic to sprinkle, and that is a little bit of a worry. But as I say, the league's really, really strong this year, so I'd love to be in that playoff mix once again.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you in terms of what we should be aiming for. Look, I think if you look at the team that finished the second leg of the playoffs against Coventry, and you look at the starting team, which is going to be starting most likely against Millwall, it's a weaker side. I think in terms of the squad, we've probably bulked that out a bit with, yes, unproven talent, but different options. You look at Rodgers, who, yes, he's probably not going to be playing in that 9 all season. He can be used on either wing or even in the 10 perhaps. And he's something different to what we had. And I think one of the arguments towards the back end of last season that we became a little bit predictable is probably right. And I think with the additions of Silvera, Gilbert, those attacking youthful prospects, we are going to have different options when we get into those situations where we do need something a little bit different, something to chop it up and change it around. Give teams more than one thing to think about rather than just sticking 2 men on Chuba Akpom and sort of hoping that nullifies us completely. But yeah, I think obviously injuries-wise, Chuba's out. We're having problems with right back. We've spoken about it throughout this podcast. We still need a starting left back and striker that's going to come into the team, and you are going to probably be able to tell by either their name or their price tag that, yeah, they are going to be the number one choice for those positions. But I think, obviously, you look at the names we've lost, Giles and Archer for those 2 positions. We'll fully reserve judgment, I guess, until we get those 2 replacements in. But I think, for me, it would be playoffs at the moment. And it just goes to show how vital those 2 positions are, because if we make 2 signings which really catch the eye, because of the manager we have, I would probably put my neck on the line and say that we could challenge automatically. But again, it just goes to show that there's still such a I don't want to say a huge amount to be done because it's only 2 signings, but then you look at the Chuba saga as well, and yeah, it remains to be seen what happens there. But I think currently we are probably weaker, and I think currently getting into the playoffs would be the main aim and my sort of goal for this season.
Yeah, I think that is probably where we are at this moment in time. And as I say, the playoffs was the aim last season because we just missed out the season prior. We made it, and okay, we made it with a few games to go as well, in fairness. And that was probably a bit of our downfall, looking at how the end of last season panned out and the last sort of 4 or 5 games of the regular season panned out as well, because we had injuries and trying to maintain a few different things probably were holding back a little bit. But yeah, with the strength of the league this year, I think that the playoffs is the aim. I think automatic promotion hopefully isn't out of reach, but I think, yeah, it possibly is, because we're going into this new season without 2 really important positions filled and a few players that played so important roles last season out injured as well. And as you say, your start is very important. We saw it last season that had we continued just for a little bit the form that Michael Carrick had sort of bedded into this Middlesbrough side for probably about 4 months of the season, we'd have probably been in the Premier League now at the minute. And it'd have been no worries. We'd have signed Ryan Giles, we'd have signed Cameron Archer, Chuba Akpom would have signed a new contract, and it'd all be fine and dandy. But that wasn't the case. We sort of struggled at the start of last season. And the hope is that if we do struggle, it isn't for too long, because we didn't actually kick into gear until about November, which is quite frightening, really, because I'm looking at the date in my bottom corner of my screen at this moment in time, and that is 3 months away, and I cannot be doing with 3 months of poor results.
Oh.
So,
Even for the good podcast. Goodness me, I listened back to a few from the start of last season just to see what we were talking about with Tuba. And I mean, some of those comments are funny enough, but yeah, it was a depressing old podcast listening back to that during those sort of final few games of Chris Wilder's era as Middlesbrough manager.
Yeah, I can't be doing with it, and certainly can't be doing with any more Tuesday evenings in sort of September time where you're 3-0 down to Cardiff after half an hour. And I'm stood in the concourse hearing cheers from the away end with about 100 fans. But
yeah, that's not going to be good for anyone, is it?
No, it's not. And like even then, if you look at the start that we had, some of the teams that we lost to, dear God, Cardiff, Reading, wow, shocking.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not again. We can't be dealing with it. Michael Carrick can't be dealing with it. Let's hope we get off to a fantastic start on Saturday. Hopefully the sun's beating down on the Riverside and Borough turn into total Carrick ball and put a few goals past Millwall, get 3 points, get on the board early on in the season, and we can look at beating Reading's 106.
Yeah, that's the dream, Nathan, but we can only live in hope. Yes, obviously, for those that have got to this point in the podcast, thank you very much for listening. Nathan, you've just set a big goal for Middlesbrough. I don't think you were setting it genuinely, the 106, but I mean, you've always got to set out your aspirations for the season. We're currently around the 400 mark on YouTube. I'm going to set a big goal, and it's a big ask because it would be gaining more subscribers than we currently have. But I want to try and get this podcast to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the season. And I'm going to lay it out on the first and see if we even get anywhere close to it. We might not, but listen, I said in the last podcast of last season that we want it to be more consistent across all of our socials, which I'd like to think we have been. So just another plug for those: Instagram, TikTok, Threads now as well, and X. I was about to say Twitter there, but I mean X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it these days, or whatever it's been changed to. I don't know. It's probably changed whilst we've been recording. But yes, follow all of them. YouTube, the Boropolis podcast. The rest of the handles are just Boropolis. And give us a good start to our goal of the 1,000. Give us a subscribe, like the video, tell us if you've been watching or listening from wherever abouts. Give your predictions for the season. And Nathan, that's us done for the preview of the upcoming season. It's at that exciting stage. You just want to be in the Riverside with some wonderful football to watch in front of your very eyes.
Yeah, it'd be really nice. And in fairness, I've been looking forward to the start of the season for a while, just because being at work on Saturdays, things like that. And now I've told them, said Saturdays off limits for shifts. Get me in the Riverside at 3:00 on Saturday. And yeah, hopefully it'll be a day full of just goals and 3 points, really. That would be ideal. Get off to a really good start and chill out everyone's anxiety about signings. It'd be really good if Hayden Coulson is man of the match and Morgan Rogers leads the line and scores a brace.
Yeah, I think that's the dream scenario, but yeah, we don't want to get anyone's hopes up too much. But yeah, before we start making up any more unrealistic expectations or dreams or anything like that, I think that's us for the episode, Nathan. Obviously, as I've just said, please do follow the accounts I've mentioned. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening. And from me, Nathan, that has been your Boropolis preview of the 2023-24 season. And hopefully we will catch you next week after a convincing victory against Millwall.